Hello, my friends. Welcome to Ask a Coach. These are the segments where your coach, that's me, Deb Penner with Drops in the Bucket, takes real questions from real people and gives you some real coaching. This question is from Audrey, and she's wondering, what's the healthiest way to start unpacking your stuff when you realize that you have a trigger? So I want to take a moment before we dive into that. For those of you who aren't familiar with the term trigger, let's talk about what that means. A trigger is something in you where when a particular situation happens, someone says a particular thing to you, you find yourself in a specific social situation, something very specific happens in your world, and you immediately have an emotional switch that gets flipped. We call it a trigger because it's very much like, bang, oh my goodness, what just happened there? And generally, when we are triggered, we slide into a subconscious level of behavior. So we are no longer responding from a place of calm presence. We are now reacting from a place of emotional overload, overdrive. And generally speaking, triggers are associated with traumas. So now we have been triggered, literally, into this space where we feel traumatized, even if what's happening in the moment really isn't traumatic in the moment. And so now we have this sort of out of control behavioral response going on. So that's what a trigger is. So when you realize you have a trigger, now what? That's pretty much Audrey's question. I want to start by saying that just realizing you have a trigger is huge. Again, these are things that exist for us largely on a subconscious level. Most of us have no idea when we're triggered, what triggers us, why we have a trigger, or what it looks like when we show up in a situation in a way that is triggered. So if you have realized you have a trigger, you are already winning. Now that you know it's there, you can begin to learn a little bit more about it. And I would suggest that you start that by really taking some time to reflect and think about, okay, what is it that triggers me? Is it a situation? Is it words? Is it certain words from a certain person or certain situations where certain other people are present? Defining the situation allows you to be proactive. It allows you to realize, ooh, I'm going to go into a situation right here where I may become triggered. So now we're operating on that conscious level where we have a better chance of responding rather than reacting. So looking at where is this trigger likely to be touched, to be activated? And then a great next question to ask yourself is, if I am triggered in these situations, in these ways, what am I going to need to re-regulate myself? If this trigger gets fired, what do I need to regroup? Again, bringing this out of the subconscious into the conscious realm so that you're able to say, whoa, hey, I was triggered right there, and this is what I need. I know it's what I need because I figured out it was what I needed while I was calm. This is not a question you can answer while you're triggered. So once you know you have a trigger, you can begin to establish these pieces of kind of like preventative information so that you can pull yourself back from that edge if you suddenly find yourself teetering over it. Once you have done those things so that you can begin to modulate your triggered responses so that you can begin to take a little bit more careful care of yourself, now we're really down to the meat of this question, which is, okay, but how do I get rid of the trigger? How do I move into a state of healing where this is no longer triggering for me? And that may involve therapy. It may involve all kinds of different things. But a great place to start is by describing to yourself, in addition to what you've already figured out, what is it that triggers me? Describe how it feels to you to be triggered. What emotions do you experience in this triggered state? What kind of thoughts do you have in this triggered state? Is there anything that you feel compelled to do? Like, I want to run and hide. For some reason, I feel like I want to hide under my bed. I feel like I want to go behind the couch. I feel like I want to go outside. So is there anything that you feel called to do in this triggered state? And also, what does this trigger feel like in your physical body? So much of our emotional response takes place in our physical body. So really tune into that. Give yourself this picture, this description. This is what it feels like to me. This is the experience for me of being triggered in this particular way. And then ask yourself, what is my earliest memory of feeling like this? What is the first time I can remember experiencing this desire, feeling this thing in my body, having these thoughts, noticing this behavior in another person, and having this response in me? And that information then can help you to move into some specific tactics that can help you remove the traumatic aspect of this memory. So the gravity of the trauma that has created this trigger is going to determine what it is you need to be able to settle it. So again, that might be counseling. You may need to get some professional help for big T major traumas. If you have found a little t trauma, you might be able to do something like EFT tapping. You might be able to do Psych-K. You might be able to do some journaling or some inner child work, maybe some theta healing. So there's a lot of different ways that we can go back to a moment where a trigger was formed in our past, and we can allow ourselves to actually process the thing, the memory that our brain has recorded as trauma, and then that essentially dissolves the trigger. The trigger arrives, gang, to protect you. Something happens, your brain says, ooh, this is traumatic, we need to protect ourselves from this thing, and a trigger is born. So when we can go back and we can establish, oh, whew, all right, that is processed. It's now kind of filed in my mental file cabinet. It's not reading as trauma in the current moment anymore. Now you don't need the trigger anymore, and it goes away. So again, what you will need to get to that space really does depend on the severity of the trauma, on whether it was a one-time thing or a many-time thing. So that's something that you'll need to explore in greater depth on your own and or with the help of a professional. But hopefully that does help you learn a little bit about what to do when you realize that you have a trigger. I want to close this video by reassuring you that you have triggers, I have triggers, we all have triggers. Trauma is absolutely ubiquitous in the human experience. Even if you have never had a big T trauma, an assault, the death of a parent as a child, the death of a child or a spouse as an adult, living through war, etc., etc. Even if you've never had a big T trauma, we all experience little t traumas. And we all develop triggers in response to those traumas. So this is not anything that means that you are defective or broken or you have an illness or anything like that. This is a normal part of being a human being and having a human emotional experience. So make sure that as you're exploring this concept, you're doing that with a lot of grace and gentleness and kindness for yourself, because this is a totally normal thing. If you would like to see more answers from a coach, Tuesday Thought Twists, and all of the other content that I bring to you here, please do make sure that you have subscribed to my channel. Hit that bell icon so that you'll get a notification when new videos come up, and I will see you again soon.